In this video, we will discuss about internal structure of ovary. Here, ovary section is here showing internal detail. So, ovary, they are covered by germinal epithelium. Outermost covering is germinal epithelium. Below germinal epithelium, there is another layer which is called Tunica Albuginea. Tunica Albuginea also associated with male reproductive system. We discussed already that Tunica Albuginea in testis of male that extend toward the inner side and divide the testis into testicular lobules. So here, inner to the Tunica Albuginea, there is a space in human ovary that is called stroma. This entire space is called stroma or matrix. Stroma is divided into two parts, cortex and medulla. And then you can see here rounded structure. These are ovarian follicles. What are these structures? These are ovarian follicles. What are ovarian follicles? They are oocyte containing complexes which occur in stroma part of ovary. Number of follicle in each ovary of young adult female is 60,000 to 80,000. While before birth, this number is in millions. Even at the time of birth, this number is in millions. But the time period between birth and puberty, large number of these follicles get degenerated. So that only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles are left in the ovary at the time of puberty. So these all structures are follicles. We will study about them in detail in our next topic, that is oogenesis. So this germinal epithelium that play role in the formation of oogonia. Oogonia is egg mother cell जिससे ओवा बनेगा. Okay. तो जर्मिनल एपिथेलियम ने oogonia बनाए. उन oogonia में से क्या हुआ? प्राइमरी oocyte भी बना. ठीक है. और जो दूसरे oogonia बच गए उन्होंने उसको सराउंड किया. Okay, here we are considering only one. Otherwise, in million numbers, in fetal ovary, millions of follicles are formed. So from oogonia is formed from germinal epithelium, and out of those oogonia, one change into oocyte and other surround it. The cells which surround it, they are called follicular cells, and this entire structure is called primordial follicle. Okay. Primordial follicle with time span, it increase in size and become bigger. Now we call it primary follicle. Then again there is increase in its size. Now it become late primary follicle. This stage is called secondary follicle. This stage is called tertiary follicle, and this last stage it is called Graafian follicle. We will discuss about these all, that what is the name of these layers, what is the name of this structure. Okay, we are going to discuss all the things. Okay, so in human female, every month there is maturation of primary follicle into Graafian follicle and release of oocyte from the Graafian follicle that occur. So maturation of primary follicle into Graafian follicle and then its rupturing to release the ova, that process is called ovulation. Developmental stages of ovarian follicle. Initial stage, that is primordial follicle. Primordial follicle change and become primary follicle. Then the structure is called late primary follicle. The inner structure, it is primary oocyte. What is this? Primary oocyte. And the cells, they are called follicular cells which surround the primary oocyte. We call those cells follicular cells. Follicular cells, they secrete female sex hormone, that is estrogen. And this growth of primordial follicle or primary follicle into Graafian follicle, that is facilitated by one hormone name of that hormone is FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. फॉलिकल स्टिमुलेटिंग हार्मोन ने स्टिमुलेट किया किसको? फॉलिकुलर ग्रोथ को. ओके, चेंज ऑफ प्राइमरी फॉलिकल इनटू ग्राफियन फॉलिकल. नाउ ड्यूरिंग दिस प्रोसेस व्हेन फॉलिकुलर सेल्स they cover the follicle, primary follicle, and their number get increased. More layers they added outside primary oocyte. These cells are called follicular cells. Which female sex hormone they secrete? They secrete estrogen. Okay, and estrogen that brings certain changes in the endometrial wall of uterus. We are going to discuss that in that topic. That is after fertilization, the events which occur, under that we will do that. Okay, it is secondary follicle, and inner to it, these are the follicular cells. Inner to it, it is the primary oocyte. Now this third next structure, that is called tertiary follicle. Okay, we call this structure tertiary follicle. Outermost layer, now the follicular cells, we call them granulosa cells. We are calling here them granulosa cells. They are arranged in this manner here, that outermost, they differentiated into two layers. Outermost is called theca externa. Inner, this yellow color, it is called theca interna. Now you can see here there are creation of certain spaces inside it. How these spaces are created? Before this, in secondary follicle, we are unable to see such type of spaces here. But when it becomes tertiary follicle, there is creation of certain spaces. These spaces actually created by secretion of, by addition of certain fluid inside the follicle by these follicular cells. Okay, so now this structure, the primary oocyte, that's also growing its developmental stages. It's undergoing divisions. Now it change and it becomes secondary oocyte. Okay, this change we will discuss in topic oogenesis in detail. So primary oocyte that change into secondary oocyte, and also there is formation of small structure which is called polar body. But the secondary oocyte, that is surrounded by granulosa cells. Okay, these are the granulosa cells. And next is, it is the mature follicle, that is Graafian follicle. Okay, in Graafian follicle there is large cavity which is called antrum. This antrum is created, this cavity is created because of role of granulosa cells. The liquid, the fluid they absorb, they put that inside, and this fluid filled cavity is called antrum. It is the main identifying feature of mature follicle, Graafian follicle. Because of accumulation of fluid, what happens? Shifting of oocyte to one pole happens. It shifted to one pole of follicle. Clear? Now, because of creation of cavity inside, because of filling of that fluid inside, what happens? Granulosa cells, they arrange themselves into layers. Clear? Outermost, that differentiated into two layers, theca externa, theca interna. And next, these are the granulosa cells. They are covering this secondary oocyte. Okay, secondary oocyte is also surrounded by granulosa cells. They get differentiated and they form corona radiata. They change, they make corona radiata. We will study that in topic structure of ova. So these granulosa cells, when this oocyte, this secondary oocyte, this is the oocyte, when it released from Graafian follicle on its maturation, it is secondary oocyte, but it is covered by which layer? Corona radiata, which is formed from this layer of cells. And another thing, like here the granulosa cells, they form pedicel like structure, stalk like structure here. Okay, how? Like in this way. This is the secondary oocyte, and then certain granulosa cells, they cover it in this way. Clear? Some of the cells, they are lying here, This is the oocyte. This structure is called pedicel or stalk-like or pedicel-like structure. It is formed by granulosa cells to provide support to the secondary oocyte. They arrange themselves in this way. We call this pedicel or this stalk-like structure cumulus oophorus. Okay, what is the name of this structure? Cumulus oophorus. And if we talk about the secondary oocyte, so outermost covering, that is corona radiata, formed by this layer of granulosa cells, and its own layer of oocyte. Okay, that is because it's a cell. So there is a layer, there is a cover, that is called plasma membrane. Innermost, it is plasma membrane. Outermost, that is corona radiata. But between these two, between this plasma membrane of oocyte and between corona radiata, there is a glycoprotein layer. We call that zona pellucida. It is considered that it is made by contribution of oocyte and granulosa cells. Okay, so secondary oocyte, it is covered by zona pellucida, then corona radiata, and complete structure is showing Graafian follicle. It is Graafian follicle, mature follicle. What it consists of? Antrum, outermost layer is theca externa, inner is theca interna, then granulosa cells, okay, then zona pellucida, then secondary oocyte. When it completely mature structure, when it become mature, what happens? Rupturing of this Graafian follicle occur and release of ova from Graafian follicle. Actually, that is not ova, that is secondary oocyte. We call this event ovulation. Now, what happen after release? When this secondary oocyte is released, this ruptured Graafian follicle, what it going to form? It's going to form corpus. So, because of rupturing of Graafian follicle, ruptured part of Graafian follicle that form a structure which is called corpus luteum. What is the function of corpus luteum? It secretes female sex hormone progesterone. Okay, if the secondary oocyte which is released from Graafian follicle that get fused by male sperm, then what happen? There is formation of zygote, then zygote change into embryo, implantation means pregnancy occur. If fertilization occur, then this corpus luteum persist. Otherwise, before menstrual flow, what happens? It get degenerated and it left a scar here. That scar is called corpus albicans. Okay, so this is all about internal structure of female ovary, and these all structures are showing growth of primary follicle into mature Graafian follicle, which is a event which occurs in human female every month. Every month there is maturation of one primary follicle into mature Graafian follicle, and release of secondary oocyte occurs at day 14, in mid of the menstrual cycle of female, that is of 28 days. On 14th day of that cycle, there is release of ova, release of secondary oocyte from female ovary, and formation of secondary oocyte from oogonia. We are going to discuss that in our next video with more detail, that how the primary follicles they formed before birth, and what is their number at the time of birth, and what happens between birth and puberty and after puberty, and what happens after fertilization by the sperm. We are going to discuss all the detail in our next video.